Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. This is a new week, and a new week means a new theme. This time we're going to be looking at the genre of mathcore, which I kind of know what I'm getting into just based on this opening band. As the title suggests, we're checking out some Dillinger Escape Plan today. We've had them on a channel a couple of times, and I'm not ready for this. I'll be honest. Dillinger is a very chaotic band, but I'm ready to dive into this and see what's up. So we have 43% burnt. Let's hit it. Ooh, I like those little acoustic flourishes. Yeah, really nice foreshadowing into this halftime feel. We also shifted to a six pulse. What in the world? It's crazy that this song isn't even 2 hours or 2 minutes in yet. Just very dissonant, unstable dyads there. Nice little touch there. Ooh. What is this, alternating 6 and 7? Whoa. Yeah. Is this fading out? That is the most subtle decrescendo. It's so excessive. I'm gonna rewind this back in just a second when this actually ends. All right. I want to see just how long a decrescendo goes for. And go. Oh, dang, I hit it spot on. So from 308 to 431, almost just a little over 80 seconds, is that? Right around 80 seconds? That is a long time to do a decrescendo, to do a fade out. Man, I can't even wrap my brain around that. So they took a 3-minute song, which honestly felt like 6 or 7 to me. I'm 100% serious with that. When it was like a minute and a half in, I felt like the song should have been over. Uh, we just hit so much. There was just a lot going on. We had already gone through 4 or 5 sections at this point, 90 seconds in, and we've hit like 5 new sections. Um, and then, of course, each of those sections is just extremely dense, not necessarily with layers, but with sound. Multiple guitars, the bass, the screaming, the drums, and they're all kind of doing different things. We had these acoustic interludes, these little ornamental lines. If we ran the first minute and a half in halftime and turned into a 3-minute song, aside from the odd warping that we would get from slowing it down to half speed, I think we'd have a palatable song that would take us on a linear journey through 5 sections. Like, it really is the speed and density that all the instruments are bringing to each section, and how brief each section is, and how quickly we move to new ideas, and how varied those new ideas are. It really felt like we went through at least a full song just in the first 90 seconds, and they had more to go. And then, of course, the last 80 seconds of the song is just this extended fade out. It is an interesting thing, at least to me. I'm sure people who are used to this type of music, this is maybe a bit more mundane. We've heard crazier things from this band specifically. We've heard crazier things in the genre as well. But to me, this is still such an interesting track just because of some of the odd choices in it and how it makes me feel like it's so long. And the extended fade out did not help with my perceived length of the track. It's also just so, man. But it made me think of a fire slowly burning out. So, I don't know. I don't even know where to start. I guess just the chaos of it all. I don't know that I have a lot to talk about regarding it, but it is the most prominent aspect of the track. And I've kind of already touched on a little of this, but it's chaotic in every layer, every level, whether you look at the most minute micro idea, such as what the two guitars are doing at any given point in time. And there's elements of both cohesion and dissonance in the guitar work. More often than not, they'll be doing the same rhythmic idea, so they're in unison rhythmically, but harmonically, they're in extremely dissonant tones, usually working with what sounds to me as highly unstable dyads. And a dyad is just a fancy word for two notes being played together at the same time. It's like a very, very small chord, right? Usually we think of chords as more notes. I tend to think of chords like 3 plus 2 notes at the same time as a dyad. So yeah, they're usually working in tandem, but well, it even still is in tandem. The instability of their dyad, of what they're playing together, is working together towards this goal of dissonance, right? So they're always harmonious in their goal, their intent of what their sounds are doing. They're just not creating typically consonant sounds with that goal in mind. But then they also sort of alternate to these sort of segmented ideas where we'll get rhythmic diversity between the two. And those sections tend to fluctuate between whether they're more consonant or dissonant in the harmony. There doesn't seem to be a rhyme or a pattern that goes into determining what they're going to do, which is just, that is the best statement for the band altogether. But then these guys are also usually doing something rhythmically in time with what the bass and the drums are doing. Even the vocals, as a purely textural and rhythmic instrument themselves, is usually in time with the drums and the bass and the guitar. There's actually a lot of rhythmic cohesion going on in this, and I think that that is what helps the song stick together. I don't know if I've talked about this before in bands like this, so it might just be that the more I listen to them, the more I'm getting an ear for the nuance of the genre, especially in aspects that I'm not used to analyzing. Dissonance is usually something I can analyze by its mere existence, but I can't see its purpose within larger structures. I've had a real tough time analyzing some of these more chaotic or dissonant tracks. And I think this is really important to how the song feels, though, because if they were going for dissonant harmony and dissonant rhythmic ideas, I think the song would fall apart. I'm sure they have songs where everybody's doing their own thing rhythmically, their own thing harmonically or melodically, and it comes together and works well, but I'd wager that that is more of an anomaly because the song, despite being dissonant throughout, carries that dissonance as a core trait of its atmosphere. But what holds the song together, what keeps it going, what allows it to flow from one section to another, every clean transition that I talked about during the reaction was a rhythmic one. Primarily, usually, when the drummer introduced an idea that was going to be the new time signature or tempo or pulse a bar later. And it really goes to emphasize just how important rhythmic cohesion is in this band, rather whether it is instruments doing the same thing rhythmically or instruments playing off of each other and creating syncopated ideas or even rhythmic hockets. There's just this very strong bond between all the instrumentation rhythmically and texturally. They're all sort of going for this specific compressed, distorted vibe. Everything from the guitars to the vocals. I guess not the drums. They have a bit of a clean mix on them, but they get their noise in a different way, right? Constant snare hits is going to get the rattling of the snare in there, and that's sort of like that compression crackly sound. So the drums find a different way to work in the chaos and textural elements, but it's all done in service to this specific atmosphere. So harmonically, it's not a consonant song, but they do find unity in the dissonance, in the instability, and they find a strong amount of unity in the rhythmic aspect, and that's what helps the song flow and sound cohesive from start to finish. It is what I am deeming the core glue that is holding this song and many like it together. Whereas usually we'd be looking at melodic flow or chord progression that ties a song or even several sections in a song together into a unified whole. This band chucks those two ideas out the window and decides to use a different kind of glue, and it works well. The song doesn't feel disjointed despite being extremely disjointed. There's a lot of elements in here that are opposing, traditionally opposing. And they find ways to make it work, and I really think it's that rhythmic aspect that holds everything together as a foundational element. So yeah, we can look at this micro level and find dissonance and find the instability and the chaos, but we can even take that a step higher. Instead of looking at what two instruments are doing, we can look at what two sections are doing, right? Or we can look at embellishing ideas. We can look at all of those those acoustic guitar bits that come out of nowhere. and just kind of give this little flair. Usually, what I heard, they were utilized as a breathing point. They wanted to stop the chaos, but instead of having a hard break, they put in this, this acoustic guitar bit. Usually a little one beat flair. I think one time was like strumming down a chord where they were all 16th notes. There was something else. I don't remember what it was. It was over top everything though. It wasn't one of these breaks. It was actually an acoustic instrument or an acoustic voice, a clean voice. I don't know if it was acoustic. It was a clean voice on top of all the chaos, and it was again just a little one bar riff, one bar lick. And it's interesting how they utilize them in a way that allows them to write something consonant, something that sounds nice on its own, and still finds a way to bring dissonance out of it. I think that is an interesting trait to have. I think it's easy to create dissonance by making dissonant noises, right? To have these harsh notes being played next to each other and really digging into that lack of consonant harmony. I think it is another trait entirely to hear something that sounds beautiful and find a way to make it sound like it doesn't fit in a way that makes it sound like it fits. Um, yeah, they have an ear for this type of dissonant complexity, and they know how to achieve it in several different manners. And I'm enthralled by that. I don't necessarily like this at all. I've listened to this is the third Dillinger Escape Plan song, I think. I can't say I'm a big fan of their style of what they're doing, but I have a huge appreciation for their attention to detail and being able to draw out these elements to create these songs. Um, and then we can take that a step higher. Instead of what two sections are doing, let's look at the song as a whole. Let's look at song structure here. Song structure is all over the place. I'm fairly certain this is linear, completely linear. I don't think we repeated any sections, and if we did, I don't believe we repeated any guitar parts. In which case, if there is a chorus, it is a chorus by lyrical design only. We were repeating lyrics from the section, but I don't believe I heard any guitar riffs being repeated section to section. So at least musically, possibly not lyrically, but musically, this is a completely linear track where we go through what feels like 15 sections in 3 minutes before ending on the most contradictory aspect of the song, where it shifts gears entirely. Instead of changing the sections every 30 seconds, we go with an extended section for a quarter of the song, where before we had 15 back-to-back rapid-fire sections. We now have one extended section that really doesn't do much dissonantly, right? We don't have a lot of layers going on. We don't have a lot of rhythmic ideas going on. I think there is, if I remember correctly, there is harmonic dissonance. The two guitars are playing things that are a bit unstable, but other than that, everything's kind of in time with each other. It's calm. There's a lot of rest, which again, drastic change from the rapid fire stuff we had seen earlier. And it is just this extended, I'm hesitant to say it, but a chill section. This is, like I said, it's still tense, right? They still have tension, they still have unease, instability in the dyads and the chordal ideas that are going on, but it is a breather compared to what came before it. And I'm really interested in what possibly is going on here, at least from their intent, what led them to this outro, because it is such the opposite end of the spectrum compared to everything we just listened to. So yeah, their idea of chaotic music exists on every level, no matter how small or how large you look at the picture. There's chaos throughout. I think the only thing that could have been more chaotic in the structure is if we did repeat sections, but there was no pattern to the repetition. Like maybe out of nowhere, we just repeat verse 1 in the middle of the song. We got A, B, C, D, A. Wow, that came out of nowhere. And then we go to like F, G, and then we repeat like E for some reason. That would be the only way that I think they could be more chaotic on the macro level, the highest level of the song. Um, so yeah, like I said, they're phenomenal at creating this type of tension and chaotic elements in their music, and it's what I look forward to when you guys always bring Dillinger to my ears. And like I mentioned, it's not something that I particularly enjoy, but I have a huge appreciation for the style of music that they create. Now, I would be sorely lacking in this analysis if I didn't talk about the performative aspect of this, because there is something wild about memorizing a, we'll say 3 minute. We'll leave off that final section. A 3 minute track with a dozen or so sections in it, all of them unique, all of them extremely dense. None of them are really just playing a note or throwing down a chord progression. All of them have intense riffing to them, especially on the rhythmic and speed side. And what was the other thing? Oh, and the constant time signature changes. They are all over the place. I don't think anything in here is really standard as far as time signature. We did hit a section that felt like it was in 6, but I'm fairly certain that every fourth bar of that was in 7. And I think that one time it was even in 5 to create a disjointed tripping effect to move into the next section. Like it was the final repetition of this 4 bar phrase, and instead of going to the 7 like expected and getting that extra note, we went to a 5 and we didn't get to play the final note that would have been in the 6, and instead we began the next riff, the next idea, and it felt like I said, like tripping. Like you got to the next bar too early. It arrived before you expected it. Um, and so like even in that idea, we see this chaotic element um, of setting up expectations, even if those expectations are a bit odd, and then still subverting them by the end. But yeah, then you have to remember all of these time signature changes. And fortunately, I've talked about this before, especially when we were looking at Stream of no, not Stream of Dance of Eternity by Dream Theater. In that, when you have a song with so many time signature changes, especially when you're going to memorize it, you're not going to memorize each individual time signature. It's more about memorizing the flow and the feeling. So you're not thinking, okay, this is 5, this is 7, this is 4, this is 6, this is 5, this is 7. You're not thinking about that. You're really thinking about how the song flows and how long each note should be and how it feels to play that riff. So there's a little bit of that muscle memory that's going to come into play there, that you don't have to memorize every single detail of the music, but it is still an extremely complicated song to remember and then to play back. And, even when you get into the groove, like I mentioned, you can think of those, like we were talking about that one section with the 6s and the 7s, 6 pulse and 7 pulse. You can get into the groove of that. 6 6 6 7, 6 6 6 7. You can get into that groove, but you have to physically remind yourself, possibly on the fourth time, it's 6 6 6 5, right? You can't let your muscle memory of the 7 step in here. So it's not going to be exceptionally easy to play something as complex, and then having to not only remember to do your part, but also be super in sync with everybody else, because the song is rhythmically dense and it is rhythmically important. I just laid out how the rhythm holds the song together. So especially on these sections where the guitars and the drums are both playing 16th notes, and maybe the vocalist is also dropping some more staccato, faster rhythms, um, that either line up with these constant 16th notes or bounce off of them and sort of are supported by them. Everybody has to be extremely precise in their performance, because any sloppiness is going to mess this up. It's going to make it sound muddy, and it's going to remove the intensity of that the staccato brings to the sections. And you Can't have that. So you have to like be hyper aware of what you're playing, hyper aware what everybody else is playing, and like there's so many ways this can go wrong. And then to remember that you have an entire set list of music just like this, just as dense, just as difficult to perform, or not necessarily difficult to perform, but just as high of a required. Yeah, I'm gonna go. It's difficult to perform. We're gonna go with that. Um, and I can't imagine memorizing 30 minutes worth of music where you memorize a classic metal song, something from Metallica or Megadeth or something. Even when it comes to jazz, right? You got your jazz standards. You have to memorize your jazz standards. You go to you get a gig being a jazz musician, and you can really be asked to play pretty much any um, jazz standard and kind of just be expected to know it. So there's a lot of memorization going there, but stuff like this, classic metal and jazz, there's less to remember. You have your verse and your chorus, and then your chord progression for your solo in jazz. And then in metal, you have to memorize the solo itself. But that's kind of it. Maybe there's an intermission section or a bridge if you're talking about the metal song, but that's a third section. That's it. And you just have to memorize the order that they go in. But something like this, that's completely linear and you're changing every 30 seconds. I mean, you figure for an entire set for Dillinger Escape Plan, they're not memorizing 3 to 4 riffs per song. They're memorizing 15 riffs per song. And it is just wild to think about. But I mean, it happens. They go on stage and they perform it, and it really shouldn't be that crazy because I've had to memorize 15 minutes worth of marching music. You watch marching bands during college football games or whatever, or if you go check out some DCI, they don't have sheet music. We have stands for our instruments to put sheet music on there, and we use that when we're practicing. But during performances, it's all memorized. Um, and marching music can get extremely complicated as well, especially when you get to the higher ranks like DCI. There's some really complex stuff going on, and you're memorizing 15 minutes of it. And unlike metal, which is riff based, it is entirely linear. There is very few sections where you're playing a repeated phrase. So, it really shouldn't blow my mind that people can memorize this extremely dense music and large amounts of this extremely dense music, but it still does. Even thinking back to me memorizing marching stuff, like how did I do that? I don't think I could do that today. My brain is not, my brain's not that good anymore. I don't think as far as memorization goes. Um, but yeah, like I said, it's still just kind of mind-boggling the performative aspect of a song like this. And I think that's where I'm gonna have to end this because oh no, give me a second. I'm gonna look into the lyrics here and see if I can figure out what's going on. I don't know if I'm going to be able to tie anything into the music because this seems, at least to me on the surface, just Dillinger's style. And so there might be some coincidences or thematic elements that line up between the lyrics and the musical aspects, but I think it would be more of a coincidence because Dillinger seems to be a band who plays one style. So maybe they can write lyrics that would fit the style, but I don't see them changing up their style of song to fit a lyrical idea. But let me dive into this and we'll see what's going on. I don't have anything to add about the lyrics themselves. They are all over the place. But I do think that the lyrical style, I can tie this into their writing style. Going back to the chaotic element. Interestingly, though, there is a repeated part. It is listed here as having 6 verses, and that is it. No bridges, no choruses, just 6 verses. But every stanza is a different number of lines. Every line has a different number of syllables. There is no rhyming scheme. There's no syllabic rhythm in any of this. it feels more like stream of thought that was just screamed. Um, but it is interesting that the verse 4 has been condensed down. It looks like the first 3 lines and the last 3 lines, and they cut out the middle 4 lines. They couldn't have done 3-3-3. That would have been so nice. A 9-line stanza. No, they had to go for 10. So yeah, the first 3 and the last 3 are combined to make a condensed version for verse 6, which of course has a completely different musical aspect than it did prior. So I have no idea what's going on here, but looking at these lyrics, it is exactly what I would expect from them. It is a bit nonsensical. It seems to be kind of all over the place in its subjects, in its topics, and there's no rhyming or pattern in the analyses of any rhythmic cadences or rhyming patterns or stanza lengths or anything like that. It is just as chaotic and unstable and dissonant as the music that it is sung above, or screamed above in this case. So, I suppose those are my thoughts on Dillinger Escape Plan's 43% Burnt. This is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you thought of this track. If you agree with me, disagree with me on anything, if you have anything to add that maybe I didn't touch on, go ahead and hit me up in the comments. Let me know what's going on. Above the comment box, there's a description box, and in there is a link for a link tree, which will take you to this menu right here. It has everything related to the channel. You can follow me on Twitter, join the Patreon, join the Discord community, email me, check out what I've been listening to, pick up some merch. There's a bunch of stuff in there. Go ahead and check it out. I barely even touched on everything right there. Above the description box, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all 3 of those. We have one more video coming out 2 minutes ago. It's our special selection for today. The band is called 3. I'm kind of intrigued about what's going on there. I'm excited to dive into that as soon as I get done with this video. Alright, until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical with the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.